Hey, we're back. I was just watching some YouTube and I was seeing what's going on with a few different channels and came across this channel that had my favorite thing on there, which was a Fox Body Mustang. And the guy was on there with a few problems with it, and he said that he was over his head. He paid too much for the car, $3,000, and it needed this, that, and the other. For $3,000, you don't get a whole lot today. And if you're buying a car that's 30 some years old, you want to expect some problems most cases. I will say this, if you have problems working on a Fox body, then you're going to have real problems working on something else, because a Fox body Mustang is the most easy car to work on. There have a few things that are a little aggravating, like anything else, but as far as putting a car together, changing suspension parts, the engine's so basic. Maybe a few problems with electrical issues might be a little bit hard to diagnose sometimes, things like that. But if you dig in, do a little bit of homework, there's not anything you can't fix on them cars for usually not a lot of money. It's like the easiest car you could possibly want to do if you're looking for something to fix up. I seen a guy about a year ago on YouTube saying the same thing, that he quit working on Fox bodies because they just needed too much work. I don't know what you'd be working on that would need less work, unless you're working on brand new vehicles when you get something that's 30 or 40 years old. So it all depends on the person, how much knowledge they have. Now, you can have a car that can kind of give you the runaround and maybe be one of them vehicles that will give you a rough time and you can't figure something out, and it'll be something off the wall and you have to call your friends and get a few people involved. But that's with anything mechanical, that these things happen. But let's look at it this way. Let's say you bought a Fox body Mustang and you found out that it needed a transmission in it. You took it down the road, or you drove it for a while and the transmission blew out of it. Say it's a 5-speed. You go home, a couple hours in your yard, even if you're on the ground in your driveway, you jack the vehicle up, get it up high enough, you pull the transmission out, you can find a transmission usually from anywhere from $300 to $500, or you can rebuild that one if you have the knowledge. It all depends how much mechanic ability you have. Number one is this right here. If you're not capable of doing this kind of work, unless you really know you have the patience to learn and you're doing it for that reason, then you may be in over your head with that. But as far as learning on something, the Fox body is one of the most forgiving vehicles you could try to mess with, in my opinion. Matter of fact, half the guys that have Fox bodies that I know now are actually Chevrolet guys. That's right, guys my age and 10 years younger than me. They were Chevy guys back in the day, and most of them guys have Fox body cars that are in the racing or just with something simple to play with. And a lot of times you'll see LS engines in them vehicles because the guys do the best of two things here. They want to make easy power, which you have a LS motor that has aluminum heads all ready to go, 400 horsepower, and little cams 500 horsepower. The engine fits right in there. and without a couple of little modifications in most cases, and you have a 10-second vehicle, like just with hardly any money into it, as long as that engine you buy is okay. That's another thing with the LS engines. Some guys will get one, it will run pretty well and no problems, but in a lot of cases you get what you pay for with that. You'll have one that's been beat up, or maybe have one that's already has a few problems with it. So you always want to know what you're buying if you buy a used engine. Especially try to buy one that you can hear run in a vehicle. When you're buying something off the ground, a used engine, you always want to be careful. Take somebody's word for something, and it was good when I parked it there, when I put it on the ground, come out of my running vehicle, and you get it, and now it's seized up or has a rat's nest in it, things like that. So whenever you mess with anything used engines, transmissions, you always got to consider the source. This covers the whole basis of things when it comes to buying something that's 30 or 40 years old. Same thing with a rear. You can have a rear and it looks fine. You take it home and the thing could be blown. You guys have to learn how to test this stuff. You got to turn the rear over, make sure it's not making no clunking noises, check the backlash in it, things like that. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say backlash, look it up. You take the pinion snout and you move it back and forth, you see how much plays in it, things like that. You always need to know what to look for and what to check for when you buy a used vehicle. If you find something that says, for instance, like this here, somebody tells you, oh, that car's only got 60,000 miles on it. And if the way we did it back in the day, you look at the clutch pedal or the brake pedal, and the rubber's all worn to one side, and you see the metal coming through. Well, most of the time, it's going to have 200,000 or 300,000 miles on it, not low mileage. That's little tips you can look for. But here's the thing, getting back to the Fox body, in most cases, that's going to be something somebody's buying just to fix up or to race or have a little fun with. If it's any better for you and you don't really know what you're looking at, try to get a hold of somebody that knows what they're looking at. Take a friend, don't be embarrassed to take somebody with you, or to find all the information out about that vehicle. Here's one of the first questions to ask when you're buying a vehicle. Ask the guy, how come you're getting rid of the vehicle? Well, I bought another vehicle and I have 3 cars, and you go by what the guy's telling you, and you try to look around the yard and find out if that's the reason. Some guy might say, well, I have financial trouble and I need to just get away from this. I'm out of racing now. This was a car I was doing for racing. Just try to use common sense and go by what the guy's telling you, the reason he's getting rid of the vehicle. And hopefully he's honest with you. But I will say this, if a car looks wonderful, you always want to cut that in half and pretend the car needs more than what it needs. That way you're not disappointed. You don't go home, peel the carpet back, and find out that the floor is half going out of the vehicle, or the shock towers are rusted out like they do in a Fox body. And now you either got to get into a lot of work that maybe you're not capable of doing, or hire it done, which will be expensive when you have somebody cut shock towers out and brace stuff up with welders and put metal in. Then you're in over your head if you don't have the finances to do it. You want to consider all these things when you're looking at a used vehicle. Don't take it for granted that something looks like eye candy, because a lot of these cars would look nice. And some guys, they've had these cars redone before, repainted and kept them pretty nice. And then they sit in the yard for a while, and the floor might rot out, and they might not even know it. Things like that. Brake lines go bad. There's more to consider than just average if the engine's okay and stuff. You want to consider brake lines. You know, cars that are 30 years old, even if they run fine, if they never had a brake line put on it, then it's probably going to most likely need brake lines. Hoses, radiator, the gas tank might need to be flushed. All these things like this here. You might need a whole new tank in the vehicle. It might be all rusted up. These are things that you have to consider. You got to consider stuff that you think the car doesn't need. You want to pretend that it does. Think about it. Say, well, what if it needs a gas tank? Am I willing to do that? It's an easy job to some people. To some other guy, that's a hassle job. He don't want to drop the tank. He don't want to drain it and have to smell gas and maybe get under the vehicle. So it all depends on the guy doing the work and what the vehicle's worth to him. One guy's going to pay $3,000 for a Fox body knowing it needs shock towers and think, you know, that's no big deal. He fixes that stuff. Another guy's going to buy that car and say, I didn't know it needed this done. I started looking the car over, and or the guy I bought it from said, oh, it's no big deal, and now I got the car home and I didn't know it was going to cost me $2,000 to have somebody do that for me. So it all depends on what you're able to do, what your finances are, and you want to put a limit on a vehicle when you buy it. If you buy a car for $3,000 and you think, well, I'm willing to put another $2,000 in it, make sure the car is able to meet your budget. Don't wind up with a car you put $5,000 or $6,000 into it, and you have another $5,000 or $6,000 to put in it, and you say, well, I could have bought one already done for $8,000. That's number one mistake people make in what I've seen. Even I've made that mistake. You think, well, I'll fix this up. And then for another couple $1,000s, you could have one with nicer paint, better condition, vehicle, maybe lower miles, which I don't really worry about because I usually do everything my way anyway. So I'm an oddball with that. Mileage don't usually matter to me. But in most cases, it's better to have something with lower miles on it. Find out if the vehicle's been garage kept. If it's parked in grass and there's weeds around it, chances are the floors are rotted out. If it's been kept on a carport and a garage, it's probably in better shape. But then again, you gotta check to make sure if it's been in a building in a dry climate or whatever, that it don't have a rat's nest that's been through it, eaten through the heater, the dash, and have a rat's nest all up inside the heater vents and your seats and all that stuff. You want to look at your surroundings when you buy a vehicle. You want to look at where the vehicle's been, how long it's been parked, if the guy's just working on it and gave up on it. Consider all these factors when you're buying a vehicle. Don't just take somebody's word for it. I've made a few mistakes in my time, thinking that a car was better than it was, but from what I remember, it was never something that I regretted buying a vehicle. It just may need more than I thought it did. And there's times I bought a vehicle that didn't need as much as I thought it did. My friend had a GTA Torino Fairlane, and I wanted that car. It was black, and that thing just had a look about it. And I was in the gas station where he worked one day, and he was leaving, and I said, Jay, get on it, let me see what we'll do. And he looks out the window and goes, Terry, this car don't have no power, it won't do anything. And he revs it up. I say, go for it. And he's revved it up, and he goes out. He's sideways going out, and it barely turned the tire. The thing had this doggy little burnout that it did. It had a Windsor motor on it. And I said, wow, that thing don't have any power. Something's up with that vehicle. So then I go there one day, and the car's sitting there off to the side, and he goes, hey, do you see my new car? I'm like, what? It's that Mustang right there. I said, oh, that's yours, that little Mustang? Yeah. I said, what are you doing with the Fairlane? I'm selling it. He goes, well, are you still interested in that thing? I said, what do you want for it? He said, $450. So I bought the car. I'm driving it home. I said, man, this thing's pulling and back and forth. And I said, well, this thing needs a lot of work done probably. I probably shouldn't have bought this thing. Because this guy knew mechanic work that I got the car from. But he didn't try to rip me off or anything. He just sold me what I wanted. I told him I didn't mind whatever the car needed. I knew it needed some stuff done to it. So anyway, I get home and I said something ain't right here, and I seen some steam, some smoke on the vehicle. I was like, what is that? And this is when I was younger. I reached down to the side of the car and I put my hand on the rim. And needless to say, I found out in a hurry what was wrong with that vehicle. The caliper was locked up on the brakes, and that rim was so hot. I got my hand back quick. I'll tell you what, that thing got me. It was so hot. So I went and put a new caliper on it. Then I started messing around with the timing. I said, wow, the timing pulled way back on this thing. I put some timing into it. The plug wires were shot. I raised the hood up on the car and I could see every plug wire jumping fire. Adjusted the carburetor. Did a few little things like that to it. Took it down the road and it was just laying a strip of rubber. Going through the gears. So then I had a little Holley 2-barrel. I stuck that on there. And car came around pretty nice for what it was. Just them little mods. It drove nice. Fun to drive. So I took it back down to where Jay was at the gas station. And I said, Jay, I got it running better. And I went out of the gas station. I got on it. Smoked the tires off. Went back. He goes, what'd you do to that thing? Man, I can't believe that thing ran. He goes, I think you were banging gears with that thing. I said, just needed basic stuff, Jay. I was like, you know. He goes, yeah, I didn't really put no money into it. He goes, you know, I know it needed some things. I said, the caliper was seized up. He goes, I kept wondering why that thing was pulled. He goes, I never checked it out. I just drove it from here to home. Well, his house was right down the street. So he was just driving it back and forth to work right there. And, you know, he never did nothing with it. But these are just things to look for. You gotta think, a car that old, pretend it's gonna need the calipers. Both calipers. Pretend that it might need a radiator, because chances are it's going to need these things if it's 30 years old. Anything that's that old, if it's original, it's going to need it. I put a brand new gas line on my vehicle a few years ago, and I thought, you know, it's rubber, but it's going to be okay, just get the car running. So I put the rubber line on there, and a year later I get the car running, and it's doing all kinds of stuff, and I smell fuel, and I look under there, and here the gas line looked like a snake skin. It had peeled completely off, and I liked that line. I thought it was good made, well-made line for being rubber, but from the fuel having the additives in it now that they do, it rotted that rubber line out. I never thought about it having all the additives in the fuel now with the rubber. So in my mind, if somebody would have came and bought that car from me, I would have said, yeah, it's got a brand new gas line on it that I replaced in the back, and then people would have thought that I was actually lying to them. If I said I just recently replaced that line last year and the car just sat there and never been nowhere with it. So these are things you got to consider. I'm trying to give you scenarios here, and it's hard to think of all this stuff because some of it pops in my mind when I'm talking here, and I remember this or that, so I kind of backtracking. Try to give you guys the best scenarios with this stuff. Now, guys that's been around the block already know this stuff. This is for guys that don't really know. And maybe it's your first vehicle you're going to go out and try to have a little fun with. My son recently he started going the other way with a few vehicles. And the first thing I said to him, I said, you know, this isn't a Fox body that you're messing with. These are all different with the header clearances, and even though they were Chevys, the Chevy was pretty easy back in the day for the most part. Even a few years of the older Chevys, they had header clearance problems with the steering boxes and things like that. We put a tilt nose on the vehicle, and if it wasn't for that, that thing would have been a really hard car to work on. That was a 55 Chevy we were working on a while back. You guys might have caught that on my channel or my son Adam's channel. That car's no longer there. He made a deal with another vehicle, and that's no longer around. And I did like that car. But it's just one of these deals. You wind up with time and money. So make sure you have the time, because I see that a lot of times, I see that be the case more than money. People don't have the time. I've seen people come home, they're too tired, they work a hard job, they don't feel like working on the vehicle, or the days are hot. And then you have the rainy days. So remember that if you don't have a garage and you're trying to do a car in your yard, and with all the bad weather you have, the hot days, the days you don't feel like it, by the time you're all said and done, you probably have a couple months to work on that car during the year. Then when you have your nice days, you don't feel like working on it because you want to go do something else. Maybe go to the shore, or go on a picnic or an outing with your family. So these are all things I want you to consider when you're trying to fix a vehicle up. So anyway, with all that, I hope this helps you guys out. Just some of the things I've come across. It may be something you already know. It may be something you haven't thought about. Keep it in mind with the money and the time that you need to put into the vehicle, and the knowledge. And if you have a buddy that says he'll help you with this stuff, and you're depending on that, and your buddy don't show up, remember, them things happen in life. Make sure if you have somebody that's willing to help you with the vehicle, that they're able to do it and help you get it done, if you don't have the knowledge to do it. There's nothing worse than buying a vehicle and then selling it for half the price, because now you're over your head, because then you have another guy come look at it and they say, oh, it needs floors in it. My friend did this. He sold a car that we went and bought. He was going to tub it, and everybody came to look at the car. They beat him up on it, said it needed floors. Yet it was a Malibu, and they were going to tub the car anyway, which they used that for an excuse to try to get him down in the price. He wound up selling that car a few weeks later, a month later, for a couple $1,000 less, or $1,000 less than what he paid for it, something like that. He took a big loss on it, and he didn't have to. People made him think that the car wasn't worth what he was asking, because it had a new motor in it, had a new 350, and I said the engine's worth $2,000, $2,500 in it. So I went with him when we bought the car. I'm partially the reason he bought that vehicle. Then it was more than what he wanted to deal with, and so he took a loss on it. So these are all factors and first-hand things I've seen. It's just not Terry's opinion. These are things I'm trying to tell you, scenarios and real-life situations that I'm telling you about. So with that, guys, I want to tell you thanks for watching, and I hope this is helpful to somebody. Take care, everyone, and God bless.